What is going on, everyone? Thank you for joining. For anyone who is new to this place, my name is Eric Velasquez, and I am interviewing all the candidates for the 2021 City of San Antonio elections, and also some of the school boards. I'm going to try to dip into that as well, just because it's really important to start to get to know more of these people and positions. Um, I'm trying something new today. So I'm on Instagram. I am recording my computer screen. So everybody on Instagram, if it's terrible, if you don't like it, that's just let me know. If the sound is terrible, please let me know. I really want to make sure that I can try to do whatever I can to reach the other platforms as well, because Instagram makes it incredibly difficult. So I want to be able to do this the best possible way, and to be able to get as many eyes to see this, because we want to make sure that everybody's informed. Um, it's good so far. Yes, thank you. All right, that's what I like to hear. It's sideways, so you'll probably have to turn the the phone sideways, but we're doing what we can, right? So, all right. So first of all, we are going to have our next guest here. Let me go and just bring him on. What's going on, Chris? How are you?
Hey Eric, how's it going?
Good. Instagram, I want to make sure audio is good, so please give me a thumbs up if everything's cool. You're not getting like crazy feedback. I just want to make sure we're not, you know, making this worse than what it making it worse, you know what I mean? So if y'all can give me a thumbs up, that'd be great on Instagram. If you can see everything looks good, audio is good. So thank you, Chris, for coming on, and let's
My
go ahead and just introduce yourself. Let's get to know more about you.
my name is Chris Baeker. I am running for City Council District 6. I was born and raised in Victoria, Texas. I'm sure some folks in San Antonio are familiar with that. With the Victoria, it's about 2 hours southeast of here, right on the coast.
Stone Cold Steve Austin, isn't that where he's
I
from?
also heard rumors of ZZ Top was from there, but I did some research. Um, let's see. I've been in San Antonio for almost 21 years after spending most of the 90s in Dallas. And I've been in District 6 since 2008. I work for Pioneer Energy Services. We contract out rig drilling equipment, well servicing equipment in the energy sector. I've been there as long as I've been in District 6 since 2008. I've been teaching at Northwest Vista part time for fun for the last 5 or 6 years because that's how I enjoy myself. I have 4 daughters that go to NISD schools, from Robb Elementary and Jordan Middle School, and 2 in Warren High School. And I'm married to an awesome, diligent lady who works for the same company I do.
Oh, cool. Yeah, you have to have a strong family to run for office, because I tell you what, if you don't have that, it's not cool. You know what I mean? So definitely having a strong family behind you and supporting you, that's definitely helpful.
My daughters, their reaction when I told them I was going to do this, they said, "A third job, Dad?" So,
Right? So okay, well, let's start with that question. What what brought you to this place of, I'm gonna go ahead and throw my hat in the ring? It's not an easy job. It's not an easy thing to put out there and make your life public. So what was that decision like? What did it look like for you?
I guess you could say it started with the government's response to the coronavirus. Um, from most of my life that I've been paying attention to politics, I've been paying attention mostly on the national level. But in the last few years, I've started taking more note of the local level, and then that just got a vicious thrust about a year ago when we saw how not so much the national, because it didn't affect us that much, but the state and local governments responded to the pandemic. So that that got me to thinking about it in November, and I was going back and forth. And then my wife asked me the Wednesday before the deadline, So where are we at on that? And every time she asked or somebody said something or I thought about it, I just got pumped up. And so I came home and started filling out the paperwork and was downtown on the last day to file.
Yeah, I remember you told me you were like last you were one of the last ones, right? To throw
Yes,
in.
I'd been thinking about it and checking out the city council's agenda for the last year or so, mainly over the holidays since my last class ended. But I was just going back and forth because, like you said, well, it wasn't a terribly easy decision to come by. But I myself am an open book. It was more my daughters were they're at a good age where I think we've done a good job thus far. My youngest is in fifth grade, and I thought, you know what, I think they're ready for this. I think we've gotten to a good point with them. So, you know, that was one more factor working in favor of it.
Yeah, definitely. And I just want to remind everyone on Facebook Live right now and on YouTube, if you would like to ask a question, please put a comment on the comment box down below. You can jump in and ask a question. And also, you can actually jump into the live stream. And I'm going to copy and paste this onto our comments. You can jump in by using this link and actually come and ask a question directly to Chris. So just click on it and you can do that. Instagram, you won't be able to do that, unfortunately, but you can actually just type in a comment and I'll go ahead and read it to Chris. That way he can answer those questions. Uh, so what are some of the issues that you feel that have not been addressed in District 6?
Uh, well, geez, I don't I don't have a whole lot of complaints when I drive around. I mean, because we live here, we eat here, we go to school here, or we used to go to the movies here.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, I love this part of town. It's really grown up, and it was undiscovered when we were first looking for houses, and I love the area, and it's more just allowing people to go on about their business freely, make their own informed decisions, engage with each other, either in leisure or in the market, and just be free without any undue restrictions.
Okay. And so with that, I do want to ask you a question because I mean this has been kind of talked about. Do you think that the government should be really involved in telling us like exactly what to do in some of the situations that have happened? I mean, yes, there should be some support, but do you think they should ultimately run the show, so to say?
It depends on the show you're talking about. The guidelines that they issue are cool. They're part of the information. It's like like the food pyramid that they deal with. There's also literature out there, books written about diet nutrition. I think the same thing goes for the pandemic from the last year. We get guidelines from the CDC, and we have 50 states and different localities to watch and to learn from. And just there's a lot of literature out there for people who want to get informed, and I think we can learn as much from the people who choose not to get informed. For the people who look like they may act a little recklessly, but we're free to engage or not to engage with those folks. Um, I don't. I personally, I think there's very few shows and very small shows that the government should quote unquote run. Uh, the government is there to enforce private contracts, private property rights, and enforce the law evenly and fairly. And in my opinion, that's about it. And society will benefit if government just restricts itself to that.
Gotcha. So what do you think you would like to improve on from the current elected official? And nothing in a negative way, just something that maybe you've seen, that, like an initiative or something that you would like to see that's going on in your district that you would like to improve on?
Well, a couple of things that I've seen is I wouldn't have supported so much the city's response to the pandemic. I wouldn't have voted to put on the ballot the proposition regarding expanding our borrowing authority for to encompass quote unquote affordable housing. I wouldn't have greased the skids for the paid sick leave to move along. Um, those are just the ones off the top of my mind, the top of my head. Um, those are the things I wouldn't have done. I see I took a peek at the city's budget, and the borrowing looks, I wouldn't say it's a similar trajectory as Uncle Sam, because I don't think anybody's in that neighborhood. But our borrowing tendency over the last decade or so is troubling. I mean, but then again, I personally don't carry a lot of debt, so almost any borrowing is troubling. I
Mm.
just don't go that way. I just I would prefer that we leave people to live their lives unobstructed. And a lot of times when we offer them quote unquote government help, it's counterproductive. And those are the main things I have on my mind.
Gotcha. Um, so what would you like to do as far as to bridge the gap between city council and the actual constituents itself? Like what are some things that you would like to spark to get that engagement together? Not to say that, the government has to run everything, but just to be able to have that connection and that communication with each other.
I would definitely, hold the occasional town hall, meet and greet or something at a restaurant or something. Anywhere that's available to say, I guess on a regular basis, hey, let's come talk. If you got something on your mind, meet me here along with our fellow District 6 constituents, and let's air your grievances. Tell me where you feel the district or the city or the representation is falling short. And then, I'll listen, I'll offer you my feedback and my take, and we can go from there.
Okay. Um, One of the biggest things is why should people vote for you? Like what are some things that you think that you can bring to the table that can, you know,
Well, because I largely want to leave them alone, and I think I do a pretty good job. I think I live by example. I try to live my best life. If I walk past a piece of trash on the ground, I'll pick it up until I reach the next trash can. Most importantly, probably, I try to do right by my daughters. Just give them, a light, few restrictions. They know they have to take care of their business in school, and then I just pretty much leave them alone. I joke with my friends that it gives me free reign to just let them be, and I can go on and do my thing. Um, I would just like to, I guess, live by example is the biggest thing I can think of, and help educate what I see as possible results if city council does this or that. Just since I've been in school, and since I've been teaching, and what I see, how I see certain policies affect certain areas of life, try to connect those dots, because doing this seems like a next natural step from not only getting educated myself. I earned my master's at UTSA in 2006, but then moving from there to being a little more vocal in social media, which doesn't differentiate me from a lot of people. Unfortunately, I do keep it civil and I don't get down in the gutter. Then to teaching, and then through writing, I consider this the next natural step in just trying to help people understand and educate and represent them and be their voice on the city council, but try to engage them and help them understand this or that as best I can.
And so, what? How do you gauge your? How do you rate your pulse with the community as far as with how close and engaged do you feel that you are with your neighbors and your community itself? That you can relay those issues, you know,
Well,
in city council.
I I have a good relationship, a good I chat with my neighbors, both in my neighborhood and across the fence from me. When you had to do some yard work or fence work, you get with your neighbors. I also still keep in touch with some neighbors where my girl's mom lives, which is just across the street. I've met people through my daughters, their parents and their extracurricular activities that they do in band and winter guard and just stuff on down through middle school and elementary school. Um, and I meet my students. I'd much rather be in the classroom physically right now, but I can still see them like I can see you right now via the technology. Just try to get out whenever possible. So I have some contacts and some reach, and I would try to leverage those and try to build some more as would be necessary uh, uh, should I prevail in May, just for the betterment of my constituents.
Okay. Uh, so what are some of the things that you are hearing from the district that they're wanting, um, and also some of the things that you would like to do when jumping into, if you do get elected, what were some of the things that you would like to do?
I heard from one recently. She was complaining about constant sirens. I told her, you know what, I can hear those occasionally too. She complained about graffiti, and we had graffiti on our fence about a year or so ago. And I said, you contact the city, the council office, and they should come out and help clean that up. Um, uh, I it again, it's not so much what I would physically do. If I may, I took part in a forum last week,
Mhm.
and it was with some other candidates. Or I observed. I was a little bit late to be included, and I just noticed that the tone of it was having a seat at the table, and then someone said something about if you're last to the table, all you get is crumbs. And I thought the phrase "the most you get is crumbs" was telling, because I think we're too. I think some of us I think there's been this mentality that the we accept the government too much in our lives. We accept that they do too much, and I think the government involvement should be scaled back. There's like the mayor's workforce training program that was recently passed. We have I teach at one of the schools that trains people for jobs. There's apprenticeships and there's other schools, and that kind of thing is just not necessary, and it's not best done through the government. Um, so people ask, what would you do? And I'm always in the frame of mind from a governmental standpoint. It's more like, what would I undo? I think we always think about stuff that needs to get done, and I'm always thinking about stuff that needs to get undone as far as the unnecessary involvement in our lives that government has. Just step back and leave the people alone, and I think we'll get the best results that way.
Okay. Well, and in that, with the basic necessities for city council, the trash and
Sure.
the graffiti and everything. I mean, so do you think that everything's running, like it should be?
I notice trash here and there when I go out running in the neighborhood. I cover my routes are usually Viola's Ventanas to Culebra and back. So I do see trash out there occasionally. That could. First of all, I would say I would urge people to do the right thing and find a receptacle. But then I would also, on the other hand, say folks, sometimes trash ends up on the ground, and let's just pick it up if you see some and take it to the next garbage can. I do see a graffiti when I go running or driving around that is regrettable. Those are the obvious ones. I don't see a lot of road issues. If we're talking basics, I've never really had a complaint myself about the roads around here. There's some congestion in some places, but the basic potholes and kind of stuff, I don't see large problems there. So in that regard, the district is fine. Like I said, it's only grown on me ever since I've been out here, and I'm still here, and I've been given little reason to leave.
Mm-hmm. So let me ask you a question with
Mm-hmm.
that. So why run for office if you feel like things are decent in your district? I mean, is there
Because
like
I see votes that were cast and a tone that is set and a tone that is supported that I don't agree with.
okay.
And I cited some of them earlier.
Mm-hmm.
As far as the basic stuff like cleaning up the graffiti and whatnot, I mentioned in my announcement, I think I shared with you a week or so ago, that I'll do my best, and I pledge to uphold all those basic city services that need to be carried out. Trash pickup, cleanup, that kind of stuff. There's other votes taken and put up that I just would have voted a different way because I think it's overreach. And our district, as far as the basic stuff,
Mm-hmm.
I don't have too big of complaints, but there's other more high level overarching stuff. Like the bond, and the paid sick leave comes to mind as well. And I know some of these positions may not be popular, but I relish the opportunity to try to explain why I take these positions. And
Yeah.
it starts here under the roof with my
Mm-hmm.
girls. And some of the times I tell them stuff and they just, what? And when I see that, I'm like, this is going to be fun.
Right.
Cool moment. So as far as the district, like I said, the basic stuff, I don't have many complaints. It's the other higher level stuff that I've seen go through the council that give me pause.
Gotcha. Okay. Anthony Pacell says police reform. Where are your thoughts on the whole police reform issue? You know.
I'm personally inclined to support that prop measure regarding their collective bargaining ability. I think unions in general, while you do have the freedom of association, which is the umbrella I believe under which unionization falls, I'm fine with that. That's freedom of association. Knock yourself out. I do think though that unionization tends to have a slowing effect on progress in general, especially unions in the public sector. So any measure that appears to me to loosen things up a little bit, I'm inclined to support. And that without having looked into it much further than what you and I read in the news about the prop that's going up in the elections, I'm inclined to support that. I'd also like to look into the extent to which we have qualified immunity. I think that deserves some scrutiny.
Gotcha. Okay. Awesome. Yeah, and the repealing of 174. I mean, what it looks like is removing that collective bargaining agreement.
I think there's disciplining of the cops as well, if I'm not mistaken.
That would be on 143.
Okay.
But I mean, there's the thing is people are saying that removing the collective bargaining agreement, the contract would allow for a new contract to be made. Suppose saying no, that's not true, and so there's a lot of back and forth, and so a lot of people are confused, and that's why I think we really need to get a little bit more information on it.
And
But
this is
yeah.
one of those issues that I think, it seems under the proper scope of city government.
Mhm.
So it deserves more scrutiny. So yeah, I'll be looking into it further, but based on what I've seen, I'm inclined to vote yes for that.
Gotcha. Um, quick change in topic, and before I start, anybody that's watching on Facebook, please jump into the live stream if you'd like to ask a question directly, by using the link in the comments, or you could just type in a comment in the comment box and ask a question. Instagram, I want to make sure we're still good on audio. Nobody's said anything. I'm assuming it's okay. I'm trying this way to kind of live stream to Instagram as well, so that way you guys can also see this. But give me a thumbs up if everything's okay audio wise, and if you have a question too, please ask a question. I don't know why I keep looking over here. But what are your top 3 places, small business restaurants that you like to frequent in District 6? Can you name a couple of them?
Yeah, the first one that comes to mind of late recently is Fish City Grill. Because I'm a big sucker for seafood. My wife asked Saturday, well, so where would you like to go? Where do you want to go out to eat? And I said, well, I was, thinking seafood. And she goes, you're always thinking seafood. I don't mind being predictable. So, Fish City Grill is a new discovery. It's a relatively new restaurant here. It's a new discovery of ours, and we've been there a couple times. As far as my girls, we have Viola's. I think I mentioned we have Viola's Ventanas within like a
Mm,
couple of football fields away from us. We're right behind that, and I like their food. Um, uh, all the usuals that people like, the old Chick-fil-A and
yeah, yeah, but
uh, my
small business.
um oh boy, let me think. Um, those are the ones that come immediately to mind. There's a Chinese takeout that we've gone to over on Culebra, around Reed. I think it's China Asia Cuisine. It's in the corner of a strip center.
Mhm,
There's that one. Used to be a Honey Drip Donuts down the road, but unfortunately, it looks like they closed.
mhm.
So those are a couple of the ones that pop. Las Palapas would go. My daughter's like that.
Okay. Yeah,
Uh,
I can say
the ones
that's
that pop to
local.
mind.
Yeah. So I'm gonna put them on the comments, just so we all can go check them out. Show these small businesses some love and some support. Um,
We could do a better job. I personally could do a better job of that. I'm a creature of habit, but
yeah.
my my wife brings up stuff, and we ought to try this next time the girls want Italian. We ought to try this. So I could do better about that.
Yeah, definitely. There's a couple of Instagram ones that I follow, like foodies that, I'm like, okay, I have my list. I start making a list from them. So like San Antonio Munchies and who else? There's so many foodies that I follow that I'm like, all right, these are looking,
I've
you
done
get
the
that list.
takeout one while watching some live stream concerts the last couple of months. It doesn't seem to, you wouldn't think it'd go with the concerts, but those there a lot as goes with anything.
Right. um, all right. So uh as far as property taxes go, what are some of the things that you would like to see done in order to kind of help the residents, you know, combating the property taxes?
Well, in my ideal world, there would be no property taxes. Um, it would be all our taxes would be consumption based. There are a few topics that I write about in various publications more than taxes in general. And consumption are the most ideal, efficient way to tax there are. Property, It reminds me of the income tax, and it's just kind of a penalization, in my opinion. And also in the local sense, they tend to get artificially inflated somewhat because of how they're intertwined with our school districts. So there's a little bit of artificial exogenous influences on our property taxes. Uh, as far as dealing with what we have right now, I think that the tax assessor collector is always open to, or receptive to complaints or protests. I personally not ever done it, but that's one of those areas where I think in a more ideal sense than anything, if the council starts wanting to tweak around the property tax, I would support any reduction in it whatsoever on its eventual way to zero. But in my ideal world, there would be no property taxes, and it would just be solely consumption taxes.
Okay.
And low ones at that. We don't need high tax rates for governmental bodies to bring in adequate revenue for the basic services that they are expected to carry out.
Gotcha. And just for anybody watching, the website to protest is bcad.org. So if you want to make sure you have to do that every single year, since there are property taxes right now, I mean, all we can do right now is just protest. Every single year, do not go a year. If you're a homeowner, if you or a property owner, if you don't go a year without protesting your property taxes, is really simple to do. Just tell them what's wrong with your house. Basically, just tell them what's wrong. So do that and make sure you do that every single year. If you have a question, reach out to me. I'll kind of give you a rundown of what to expect and everything. So I mean, one of my questions was, what's your plan on reducing spending? But I mean, we already kind of have an idea of what you would do. Is you want to try to make sure you're cutting stuff that doesn't need to be there, right? I'm assuming.
Yes, sir. I mean, there's basic city functions, like you always hear about the roads and landscaping and parks and that kind of stuff,
which aren't being taken care of very well.
Yeah, well, you know what? When a government gets in over its head, trying to do things it really shouldn't be, you lose focus on the basics. So yeah, I think I have mentioned what kind of stuff I would cut, but then there's just basic stuff it should focus on, and that's it. I think government gets too big when politicians and office holders seek to elevate their importance to make it on par with the people who are most important. You, me, our neighbors, the fellow citizens, and especially those who take the risk to open their own business, which is not, hell, you think I took a chance or took a risk to jump in, throw my hat into this ring? That is nothing compared to the risk that people take to open their doors of business. Those people are the most important people, and I think those in government, they want to be as important. And I am humble enough to know that I am not. I've never taken that dive to open my own business, but I know plenty of small business owners, and I just stand in awe of them, and I think we should leave them and consumers alone.
Gotcha. Um, One of the big questions that I usually have, that's not really being talked about because this is fairly new concept, and you might be aware of this concept, but uh, basically it is. Where'd it go? Hold on, trying to. Ranked choice voting. Do you like the thought of ranked choice voting? Have you heard of it?
Oh, yes, sir, I
Yeah.
have.
Okay.
I think
Um,
they're doing it in Maine, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere up in New England.
yeah, Maine, New York.
Oh,
There's a couple of other like states itself that are doing
Alaska
ranked.
comes to mind, but I'm not 100% sure on that. But Maine,
Uh, Yeah, possibly. But I know, and there's, I think, who is it? North Dakota is doing approval voting. Approval voting, which is like you basically can vote for any candidate. There's no rank structure. Just vote for all the candidates if you want to, or just one, or whatever you want.
That's interesting.
Um,
A little
so
more
is this something that you would like to see in our city, possibly?
I think it's definitely worth looking at. Because city government, city politics, I think is a bit of a different animal than the national scene.
Mhm.
But I know that just having two, first of all, on the ballots we have, there are rarely, if ever, only two choices, but people feel like they only have two choices.
Mhm.
And I think based on what I know about ranked choice voting, it would give them an opportunity to fill out that second preference of theirs.
Right.
And I think it does tend to build a little consensus if a lot of people have the same second preference. That would like send a signal to your fellow citizens like, all right, we may not have had the same first preference, but we had the same second preference, and a lot of us did. So I think
Right.
something to that. So I think it's worth looking at for sure.
And it's something that I think would create a little bit more unity, especially in partisan voting. This is a nonpartisan race
Yes,
for
sir.
everybody who's watching, and
Hmm.
partisan is by party, and nonpartisan is no party is affiliated. Supposedly, no party is you're not voting for a party in these races. So, and just so y'all know, ranked choice voting is basically you can pick each candidate by one, two, three, four, five. You can pick all five candidates, but you just rank them in order. Every winner has to reach that 50 plus one threshold, just like all of our elections that are going on right now. Um, and so what happens is, let's say you have their first round. Uh, if your first candidate doesn't, you know, is in last place, then they drop off. Then the second round goes, and basically just keeps going in rounds until a clear winner has met that threshold. And this is all automatic. So we don't have to vote four times. We just vote the one time, and then it basically just ends up uh, cycling itself out until we have a clear winner, and people have voted specifically for their ranking choice. And what happens with this specifically, the really huge fact, like benefactor is we would eliminate the need for runoff elections. And runoff elections, if you don't know, here in San Antonio, cost the city taxpayer $8 to $10 million every single time we have a runoff election.
Sounds good to me.
So, right, so there's money we can focus on putting back into our city, right? But also rank. What was I gonna say? Also, runoff elections have a low turnout to begin with already, because there's always constantly voting that we're doing. So this would also help, you know, and put money back into our economy itself. So just want to throw that out there. I asked this question because I think it's something that we really need to talk about, to kind of election reform in a sense. And some people might say it's, our stuff is good right now, but I don't think so. Not when we're spending $8 to $10 million on runoff elections.
I've seen people try to make the case against ranked choice, and I'm not convinced. I think I don't buy into their cases against it. The way you described it sounds like the fact that it's automatic. It was
Mhm.
starting to sound a lot like the way Iowa does caucusing,
Yeah.
except for the one vote automatic. So it's definitely an appealing option. I think it should be looked into.
Yeah, definitely. And again, anybody has a question, please do so. Please feel free to ask. Instagram, please ask a question in the comments, and I will gladly relay it to Chris. Um, so what are some things that you feel that are not being utilized by the district that maybe a city owned entity like a property or something that's in your district is not being utilized to its best potential?
Hmm, good question. Um, Nothing comes immediately to mind. It's one of those areas that it's one of those city areas that I would have to study. I'm sitting here scanning the map in my head about my immediate surroundings and government buildings or just buildings in general. I mean, I see empty buildings occasionally, but I don't think they're government buildings.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. You never know now. It seems
Possibly.
like the city has been buying some property, but that's the thing though and I don't know exactly about your district if there are some places that are underutilized like there are in D2 and D3 that the city has these buildings there, they're not being utilized, either because they don't have enough manpower or they don't want to pay. But there's a lot of volunteers in the communities that want to use these facilities, and I think we should really take a look at that.
One of that reminds me, a friend of mine, he's really into gardening. He tried something out for a while. I think he still does it, where he tries to develop or use vacant lots that are owned by the city for gardening and horticultural uh, purposes. Um, but that's more like vacant lots.
Yeah,
Buildings, I'm still not getting any buildings that come to mind, but I've seen plenty of vacant lots, and I'd be curious to see how many of them are owned by the city, because I almost always see signs on them, for lease, call this number. It's a private
right.
realty company.
Yeah,
So I'm not 100% sure where the city-owned property is in our district, other than district offices and that kind of thing.
definitely. Josie says, "My apologies, I'm a bit late." No worries, Josie. Did you discuss houselessness? Not yet. We haven't discussed houselessness. If not, how do you feel about using vacant city-owned buildings as transitional rehabilitative housing?
I think that goes to your point, Eric, that you just made about utilizing that kind of these buildings that are owned for purposes like that. I mean, that sounds like a worthy use for these buildings, especially when Ms. Garcia says transitional and rehabilitative. Excuse me. Then it's just a matter of getting the qualified people to make it run, which is another story. But that for the express question that Ms. Garcia asked, I think that's an interesting, it's a good idea. If those buildings aren't being used, then I think that's probably a good use of them.
And I'm gonna push back only because I know this is what I keep hearing from others, and I'm not pushing back. I'm just saying that this is what I hear. People are saying, "Oh, well, I don't want that type of environment in my neighborhood." So, what do you
The,
say to that? What do you say to those people that,
the NIMBY argument,
yeah,
not in my backyard.
yeah,
Um, I'm sympathetic to that. That's why that's another reason why it depends on the people you get to run those places, and how they're run when they're up and running. I think that is something that should be taken into consideration. But if it's a city-owned building, again, I think it comes down to who's running it, and because if it's a vacant city-owned building right now, almost by definition, I guess it probably couldn't get any worse. If you're gonna, especially if you want to house people,
mhm.
it's got to get a little better if you're gonna repurpose it. Um, so it depends. If the residents that are there, the temporary residents that end up there, are model citizens, then I don't know if there's much complaint. But if they're not, then the neighbors, I think the neighborhood has a legit gripe.
Yeah, that is a tough conversation, and I think I think it was the CEO of Haven for Hope. He was talking about, people have asked him, well, how do you end poverty? And it's like you don't, until you, because there's so many different aspects of why people are in poverty. It's not a one stop solution. There's a lot of different things, and until we're all willing to just come together and find solutions for all of these problems, we're not going to get anywhere. And that's the hard thing. But how do we help these people, um you know get into a better life? That's the hard thing, and we're trying to have to be sympathetic. I mean, we should be.
I think the primary focus in that regard are those who have mental health issues,
Hmm.
because by definition they can't. It's too difficult to function on their own successfully and to do well. So those that demographic I'm sympathetic to for obvious reasons. My I know people who needed help in a temporary kind of a fashion.
Mhm.
I think that's an important part of it. So yeah, I agree with your general sentiment there.
Yeah. And Curtis say, why would neighborhoods not want a place where people can heal? And that's a good question. I spoke to the owner of Comfort Cafe. I can't remember what district that is. I believe that's
Mm.
District 7. I'm not sure, but she said that they had bought a piece of land over there by the medical center area, and they were going to have something like that to where people can heal and rehabilitate. Because if y'all aren't familiar with the Comfort Cafe, they are a restaurant that you pay whatever you feel, right? And all that money goes to help the employees, which are struggling with addiction or um, healing and rehabilitated from all these different things, and it helps them. So they wanted to do this plot of land and do something like that, to where having an area where people can rehabilitate and heal, but the neighbors around there shut it down, and a lot of red tape.
I,
So
I'm curious to check into this Comfort Cafe. I'm not sure I've ever heard about it. It sounds like
yeah,
a noble effort.
yes,
Uh, to Mr. Miller's question, I think people are probably too afraid of the unknown. They don't know. Maybe they just think that these are the same folks that are at the intersections that look like they have fallen on hard times, and they may just be apprehensive,
yeah,
possibly. But again, I think succeeding in that regard takes some convincing, and I think it takes the right, I hate to say marketing, but the right people to get in and do the job, and to build a little confidence, and appeal to people's compassion a little bit. So I think it depends on how it's presented and how it eventually gets up and running.
mhm. Anthony says some people are homeless, living with a relative. This is true. I mean, there's a lot of people that you know are staying with somebody, and I mean, we take a perspective of, well, they're homeless, they're houseless, and they don't want to do anything. But some people have fallen on hard times. I mean, you and I can just like that. Something can happen, and we could be houseless. I mean, it happens.
I was there last year. I mean, not homeless or houseless, but just like with a lot of other people, on the edge. Just wondering what the next day would bring, especially being in my industry and how hard we got hit by it. I was there with most other people,
Yeah,
stressing a lot last year. And I had my first anxiety attacks. That was a weird experience.
yeah,
But yeah, we are generally all on the edge, and that's why we need to stay on our toes and be vigilant, and having a good family support structure, like you mentioned early on in the program, is important. But it, 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 it we need to stay on our toes and stay prepared, and just stay ready.
And sympathetic.
Yeah.
Or apathetic. I
No, no,
always get this.
you don't want apathetic. I don't think you mean
Okay.
it.
It's one of those.
Yeah.
um, Anthony says most people just need to see the homeless as people instead of abstract homeless. We need to get churches involved. Also, it starts with our attitude towards it. And honestly, I mean, that's what a lot of churches were supposed to be for to begin with, right? I mean, to
I
help those,
I
not from the state.
agree with that. I can't speak to their involvement, but that's my impression.
Right.
Part of their mission.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they really are supposed to be there, not the state, not the government, and
Oh,
they're the ones.
yes, sir.
So I think that's where, and honestly, I don't think our city is using that more to their advantage. I guess I don't know if that's the right
No,
wording, but
right. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know what how much in joint venture they work with churches. I think there's a kind of a fine line there. But yes, ideally, folks like that get involved more. I mean, I know, you know what, I don't like to come off like I'm virtue signaling, because I hate when people do that. But last year, when we were able to stay afloat, I increased my giving. I gave a decent chunk to the food bank. It does take all of us that are fortunate enough to be able to still have our head above water to help out. And I think it's best done voluntarily
Mhm.
in that fashion. And the United Way, for example, I've always been impressed. They do drives via our workplace, and they've always given us options of different demographics to help. All kinds of demographics: mental health, seniors. I usually personally go with kids because I think they're the most um, innocent victims in society if they get dealt the bad hand, and domestic abuse victims. Those have always been my targets for a help, and I think I think it's the right thing, and I think it's a decent thing for all of us who can to do more like that.
Right, definitely. Anthony says some people have family to go to, others don't. Think of the kids who age out of foster care. We need help. Yes, Anthony, and that's a big thing that because I adopted my wife and I adopted our son, and the fact that adoption costs so much is so beyond me that I just I it's like you have to have money in order to adopt, specifically with certain avenues, because there's a whole mess of other ways that you can adopt. Yes, totally understand that. But there are some that are just expensive, and you know why does it cost so much? You know what I mean? And that's why some people don't do the adoptions, or with the foster cares. You don't know what's going to happen with the foster cares, and there's so many things that I think maybe we need to fix in our system that we can stop having these kids aging out of foster care. And I think, what was it, texas Texas Heart Gallery, if you are looking into fostering a child, um, or adoption, actually, I think it's adoption. Texas Heart Gallery is a good one that you can go in, and they don't have any parental rights to anybody, so they are from the state, and they're just looking to have a family. So if anybody's looking to do that, Texas Heart Gallery is a good resource to do that. Do you have anything to say regarding this
You
topic?
know what? I have to be careful with how involved I get in this kind of conversation, because even though they were the primary targets of my charitable giving for the last number of years, I can never bring myself to visit an orphanage. And I should push myself to, but I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to maintain my composure.
Yeah.
I got to, I mentioned earlier that I hold very few people in higher regard than small business people. Hats off to you, because that's another demographic right there. I got a buddy that adopted two boys. I think it was about 3 or 4 years ago, that whose mom gave him up or could not maintain custody because she had drug issues. And he said, I remember him saying it cost him upwards of 5 figures to adopt those boys. And certainly any red tape, any unnecessary red tape and costs associated with that should get some serious scrutiny, because again, there's no demographic that has greater sympathy from me than kids. And I have four of them myself, and it bums me out to think about it, to talk about it, because no demographic gets a crappier hand than mistreated children.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, especially, I mean, you see them, they're like, we just want somebody, even if they are aging out. There's a lot of kids who they just want to know that there is somebody that they can call, right?
mhm.
And you've seen it on some of the news channels and things like that. They're gonna age out. That's fine. They just want to say, I have a family somewhere in San Antonio that I can call, that can possibly help me. They already got their life straight. Like, there's some that are like, I'm going to college. They just want somebody there, So
Yep.
yeah, sorry. That's a tough topic for you, Steve. And
Yeah.
but sorry about that.
No, it needs to be talked about.
Yeah, it does. So anybody has if anybody has a question, please do so. Thank you, Anthony, and everybody for also um asking your questions and comments. Uh sorry. Woo, okay. Do you think that would you like to see a TERS in District 6, and that's a tax increment reinvestment zone? I know there's a lot of other areas that have these TERS, and it's basically to with um, help with funding for an area in the location of whatever the location's at, for small business to help with like their storefronts and their, to make it look better, so that way people can frequent the area more.
Uh, Man, I'm not sure I've ever heard of that. It sounds kind of familiar when you say tax reinvestment zone. Was that what it was?
Yeah, tax increment reinvestment zone. It's called a TERS, and we have TERS boards, but there's no TERS in District 4, 6, and 7. And I don't think 8. There's no TERS over there. So I'm curious to see why.
I have
Maybe
to look that up. TIRS is the acronym.
TIRZ. TIRZ.
TIRE. Oh,
Mhm.
duh, of course.
Yeah. So,
Yeah,
I mean,
I'll look that up.
and I don't know, maybe it's because the need's not there. I don't know, but according to, I think it was District 4, there was some District 4 talk that there's no businesses in that area. So I'm not exactly sure how District 6 is doing as far as businesses go, but just throwing that concept out there, and the talk.
Calais looks lively every time I drive down it. So
Maybe that's why.
ranch over there is a pain to drive through because they're so busy. So
Oh, okay.
I guess
Maybe
it's
that's
a pleasant dilemma.
that could be why. Jolie says we have to face the painful realities of the pain and suffering within our communities. This is the only way we can make true transformational changes with our underrepresented communities. Very true. Anthony says we will spend well over 25,000 a year to hold a man in prison, but how much will we give a homeless vet struggling to get on his feet, or foster kid who aged out? As a society, we are judged by how we treat the least among us. Less police, more social services. That's what we are going as a city.
I would say that we're probably a little over incarcerated, and too many aspects of our society are over criminalized. So to his first point, I agree. That needs to be reformed from the roots, and just there is no such thing as a victimless crime, but apparently we as a society choose to prosecute them. I do like the trajectory we're on with gambling and general drug decriminalization,
Mm.
because some things we don't need to be wasting not only the money, but wasting people's lives because of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So that's a very good point. I agree with very first point he made. That really jumped out at me.
Hmm. And transportation, we should look into light rail. Yeah, I mean, if it's possible, I mean, what are your thoughts on the light rail or transportation in our city to begin with?
Well, let me put it this way: the one thing that I love the most, the only silver lining of the pandemic, is working from home, because there are fewer soul crushing experiences in my life than traffic congestion. I've regained an hour and a half out of my life every day for not having to sit through traffic. Um, Transportation in general, the light rail, that was an issue when I first moved here and it got voted down. But I think it reminds me of the issue for a new airport, or refurbishing the airport. I think the community, I think we need to become a more fertile ground for more prosperity. You know, what are we the always the we're not as prosperous GDP per capita as all the other big Texas cities. I think we need to work on that first, and then I think transportation. I think that kind of stuff will follow. Um, you know, another thing that comes to mind is the existence of the Alamo Dome. I think that's, to me, that stands out as kind of a good example of a bad decision, because had we built that first and no pro team ever came here, except for the Saints in the Katrina season. um, I think we have to build from the ground up first, and I think that starts with getting off people's backs and giving them a little help to succeed on their own. um, and I think the transportation, I think that, something like a light rail or maybe HOV lanes. I think we shouldn't frown so much on toll roads. I think that kind of stuff will come once the prosperity demands it.
Mm. Okay. Josie says killing George Floyd, sparking nationwide protests. Police accountability has been identified as a national issue. Spotlight has been shown on our local issues with police accountability as well. What is your stance on police reform? We did kind of touch on this, Josie, but you want to you want to just
Well,
real
well,
quick?
the union reform I'm inclined to support. I'd like to look into it a little bit more. I also like to look more into the qualified immunity, where policemen are given some kind of extra shield of liability. Did I say qualified liability? I meant qualified immunity.
Hmm.
I'd like to look into that. That needs serious scrutiny. And back to that point just a few moments ago, just I think we put too many people in jail, and I think it makes the target wider for these kinds of unfortunate incidents to occur. So I think there's can be police reform, but I think we need to dig even deeper than that and come up even from the deeper roots to solve why we have such a police presence in the first place. They don't need to be militarized, that's for sure. Um, I think I think the Second Amendment gives us sufficient ability to, or a decent amount of ability to protect ourselves. That I think there's ways that we can go about this that are more organic, in addition to some of the surface police issues that need to be addressed.
Gotcha. All right. Well, if anybody has any more questions, please do so on Instagram, on Facebook. If not, we'll just go ahead and wrap it up. I'm gonna go ahead and just ask you if there's anything that you would like to just touch on that maybe we didn't get to touch on, or something that you would really like to say regarding your campaign.
No, you know what? We've been at this for over an hour now. I mean, it's been not exhausting, but exhaustive, and I've totally dug the hour. I think I got to say a lot and answer a lot and hear a lot.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed. You know what? I appreciate the spirit in which you do this, based on my understanding. I respect that. We've touched on just about everything I can imagine that is important to me. The reasons why I jumped into this. So I just, you know what? It may sound odd, but there's a saying that I want to get into this to leave you alone. To want to leave people alone. I
No,
want to give back.
I 100% agree with you. I'm, I'm a libertarian, so I very much you're preaching to the choir. But I do think there's some things that, I think that we can fix. Yeah, because we can't just, I don't think we can go cold turkey immediately.
No.
But yeah, I mean, I think we're really relying on the government too much, and we've have clear fact that the government usually tends to screw it up. So just like the food drives that we've done before, you know, and again, I don't want to bash anybody. I'm just saying that there's been a lot of critical constraints to some of the operations, especially with the food drives, that limited it, a lot of people to do what they could for the community. And it wasn't here, it was like the federal level, and it was disappointing for a lot of community organizers, and for a lot of community that couldn't get the food now because there were a lot of restrictions that were being placed. So
One more point I would say is, as far as libertarianism goes, I think if there is any collective action to be taken, it is on the local level. The more I've learned, the more I've seen that there's still too much of a government overbearing on the local level. But compared to the Fed and Uncle Sam, I mean, if there's any place, this we're the boots on the ground. We're where it's happening. So um, I think there can be more collective action. That doesn't always necessarily mean it needs to come with the blessing of the city council or the commissioner's court, but it'll resonate there more because they're closer.
there's a lot of groups in the city that are doing things. They're getting stuff done. There's a lot of mutual aid groups. There's a lot of, food pantries. There's a lot of organizations that are doing the work. And I mean, I think the government really needs to say, look, let's rely on you guys to do that. So you guys are the boots on the ground, like you were saying. You guys are putting that work in.
And that sure seems like a tall order.
Right.
You know what? That's what I'm here for. I'm here to be that voice there. Like, hey,
Yeah.
you know what? It may sound like a tall order, but let's just do it, or
Right.
let's undo it.
Exactly. So, well, all right, Chris, I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you.
Yeah, oh, definitely. Thank you for everybody joining, for asking these questions, being engaged. Let's keep this momentum going every time to be able to make sure we are looking into the candidates, and just getting more perspective, because the forums are great. These forums are awesome, but until we have a real good conversations with people like this this is kind of face to face, it's virtually face to face, we won't really get a good sense of idea. And this is really why I wanted to do these type of interviews, because they're just more in depth, but thank you everybody for joining, and just have an awesome time. Good luck, Chris. Oh, how can people get a hold of you as well?
Well, there's my website. It's my name, and pardon me for pointing this out, but it has a C in the last name, Baecker.
Oh, shoot, I'm sorry.
That's all right. My campaign website is my website. It's chrisbaeker.com. slash city dash council. You'll find a couple links to what I think on various issues of publications I've written at Mises and American Spectator and various the Express News when they took me. But yeah, thank you. Wow, that was a quick change.
Yeah.
Yeah, go to my website, Chris.
Nothing changed. It was always like that. Not just like
Uh,
all right.
chrisbecker.com/city-council, and you can find my email there and hook up with me on there, or that's got my Facebook link as well.
Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you, everybody. Appreciate joining on Instagram. I didn't receive any negative comments from the sound quality or anything, so I'm assuming it worked. But I'll look back at it and see how it worked. But thank you, everybody, for joining. And we're doing an interview a day, at least right now for the next 2 weeks. So we have interviews lined up. I think we're doing on 2 of the days we are doing 2 back to back, or no, we're doing 1 back to back, I believe. But we will have 2 school board candidates. So I really wanted to dive into that topic as well with others. So stay tuned. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.